So here's our stuff on rods and cones, right? You've got the black and white vision with the rods, color vision with the cones, and then I believe we talked briefly about the visual pathway, right? So how does this get back into your brain? So you have neurons, okay, or your photoreceptor cells, which are your rods and cones, that send a signal to the bipolar layer in your retina, which sends a signal to the ganglion cells. So in your retina, hold on, which is what it looks like. So we kind of briefly talked about this already, but you have a pigmented layer, and then you have the neural layer in your retina. Okay, the pigmented layer absorbs any excess light that might come and hit in the back of the eyeball, so that you don't get light scattering around and make your vision blurred, right? So you have, and then you have the neural layer. Okay, this is the neural layer. You have three different parts to the neural layer. Okay, you have the actual photoreceptors, which are the rods and the cones. Okay, and they get their name rods and cones because that's how they're shaped. So here's your rod and here's your cone. Okay, so they are actually shaped like rods and cones. Okay, and those synapse with this layer right here. This is called the bipolar cell layer. All right. So when these get light and absorb light, they send a signal to the bipolar cells, right? And then these bipolar cells send a signal to the ganglion cells right here, okay? And the axons of the ganglion cells come together and go back to the back of your eyeball right here, where they form the optic nerve, right? And then that goes back into your brain, so back to your occipital lobe, so you can actually see. Yeah? Okay. So what's weird is that when you see, light actually goes this way into your eye, so it passes through here. It passes all the way through the ganglion cells and the bipolar cells before it gets to the rods and cones, okay, which just seems backwards, right? But that's the way that it is. And then the signal that goes to your brain actually travels this way. So it travels, the light goes back, and then the signal comes forward. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. So that's your visual pathway. We'll talk more about this. These little wavelengths right here show you how the different wavelengths of light that your different cones absorb. So this would be the blue one here on the left, right? It absorbs blue light, but also gets the purple wavelengths of light. And then this is your green, so it gets the green wavelengths of light, but also yellow and some blue and red. And then you have your red cone, which absorbs lots of red, some yellow, and some green. So the combination of those three cones, you get the entire visible spectrum, right? So you do get all of the wavelengths of light. So you can see all of the different colors, which is pretty cool. So if you're a mantis shrimp, you can see more colors than that, and other like UV light and stuff like that. So you can have color blindness, okay? And typically you get what's called red-green color blindness. Okay, so being colorblind does not mean that you see in black and white. Right? Basically, it means that either red or green cones don't work, so you don't see that color. Okay, so things basically look different colors than they actually are to you if you're colorblind. So this is like what you would see if you have normal vision right here on the left. Okay, you can see the red, the yellow, and the green light at the stoplight, and you can see the red berries and the green leaves, and the sky is nice and pretty and blue. Yes? If you have red or green color blindness, this is more what you see on the right. Okay? So you can't really distinguish between those three colors. Okay? You basically, if you drive, you have to learn, okay, you know, red is at the top and green's at the bottom, and so that's how I know when to go and when to stop. And then if you look here, okay, at the bottom picture, what do you notice about this picture? Can you see the berries anymore? No, not really, right? They basically blend into the tree. So when you have red-green color blindness, your vision is not quite like as acute. Some details kind of get lost because you can't distinguish between the different colors. Does that make sense? So it's not like you just see in black and white. You just see it with different colors. So if you were to see in black and white, or like basically your cones don't work, that's called being legally blind. All right. So you if your cones don't work, you are legally blind.
You can still see. Oh, sorry.
So that's what happens when you're colorblind. Pretty cool for interesting things. All right, so there's your retina again, and so that's the innermost layer of your eyeball. And that's where vision actually, or light actually gets picked up. So, how do we actually see? How does this work? In order to be able to see, you have to have three things happen. Okay? The first thing that you need to happen is that you need to be able to take and form an image on the retina. Right? So you need to be able to take the light rays and put them onto your retina. Okay? The second thing that you need to happen is those photoreceptors, the rods and the cones, need to be stimulated by that light. Right? And then the third thing that you need to happen is for that light to have then that signal that gets created to have a pathway to go back into your brain. Okay, so those are the three things that you need to happen in order to be able to see. Form an image on the retina, stimulate the photoreceptors, send the signal to your brain. Yeah? Okay, so we're going to look at the first one of these today. So, when you form an image on the retina, you need four things to happen. Okay? The first thing that you need to happen is you need the light rays to actually bend. Right? And that process is called refraction. Okay? So you basically need to take all of the light rays that are out here that you actually can see, that are coming towards your eyes, and bend them in order to focus them onto the retina. Okay? That's called refraction, the bending of the light rays onto your retina. Right? And that happens, okay, most of that actually happens on your cornea. Okay? So your cornea is where about 75% of the refraction of the light that occurs in your eyeball occurs at the cornea at the front. And the reason for that is you have light rays that are going from an air medium out here in the air to a liquid medium, which is in your eyeball. Okay? And when light travels from air to liquid, it bends, right? And that's why, like, when you put the spoon right here in water, it looks like it's bent, right? Because the light rays get bent, and so to you it looks like the spoon's broken. It's not actually broken. It's just the way that the light rays have changed direction. Does that make sense? Kind of. Okay. So when light comes into your eye, if it's coming in straight in, it hits that cornea and it gets bent, okay, because it's going from a air medium to a liquid medium. All right. So the light actually travels differently in water than it does in air. Okay, and light rays actually get absorbed by water, which is why, like in the ocean, after about 300 feet, approximately, there's no more light because the water absorbs it, whereas air doesn't really absorb it so well. Does that make sense? But it travels differently. So when it hits your eye in the cornea, it gets bent. Okay. So the second thing that you need to happen as well is accommodation. Okay? And accommodation is basically the changing of your lens shape. Okay? So the cornea does about 75% of the work of bending the light to form it onto the image onto the retina. But you do need your lens to help you out a little bit. Okay? And so your lens will change shape in order to focus the light onto, do the rest of the bending and focus the light onto your retina. So you need refraction, you need accommodation, you need constriction or narrowing of the pupil. In bright light, okay, your pupils get smaller. The reason for that is if they were bigger, okay, light from over here could still travel through that pupil and hit other parts of your eye, and your vision would be blurry because it'd be all confused because there'd be lots of light inside of your eye and it would be a problem. Okay, so your pupil is actually narrow, so now that the light that's coming this way can't get into your eyeball, and so it gets focused in the right spot. Just the light that comes in through that pupil gets focused in the right spot, and your vision is clear. Does that make sense? Okay, so your pupil adjusts. Accommodation and the constriction of your pupil happen simultaneously. They happen at the same time. and it's autonomic. You don't control it. Okay, so it happens automatically. And then you get convergence of your eyeballs. So you have what's called binocular vision. So you have two eyes, so you see one image, right? And so your eyes basically focus the light on pretty much approximately the same spot in general at the back of your eyes. And in order for you to see one image, your eyeballs move together, right? So that they're always like focusing the light on pretty much the same part of the retina, okay? So when you look out at something far away, so your eyes are looking straight out, but if you take something and bring it closer and closer and closer to your nose, right, closer and closer to your face, what happens to your eyeballs? They move towards the center, right? Because as they're looking at that thing, okay, they are trying to focus on it, and your eyeballs have to move to keep the light hitting that same spot of the retina. Does that make sense? Okay, so you need those four things to happen just in order to form that image on the retina. So the bending of the light rays by refraction, accommodation changing the lens shape, constriction of the pupil, and then convergence. What's kind of cool, fun fact, because I also teach marine biology, fish have monocular vision, so they have two eyes, but they see two different images, and they can move those eyes independently. And so they can be like looking, up and down at the same time. So you have binocular vision, two eyes, one image. Kind of cool. So, fun fact of the day, marine bio fact. So this is your refraction of the light. So they bend, light rays bend, and then 75% of that occurs at the cornea. What's crazy though, okay, weird. When the image actually hits your retina, it's actually upside down and flipped. Okay, and your brain, when you're a baby, okay, actually learns to flip that image and make it the right way. So when you're a baby and you're learning to like reach out and grab stuff, when your brain is taking like, oh, I reached over here for this thing, but it was actually over here and it wasn't quite the right thing. And so it takes what you learned by reaching out and grabbing stuff and compares it to what actually happened, and your brain learns to flip that image right side up. So you learn to flip that image. Here's your refraction. Okay. So this is what happens in your eyeball when you look at things that are far away. Okay. So when things are far away, the light that is entering into your eye from that image, so this little tree right here, the light that's entering into your eye, the rays of light are basically parallel. Okay. And so when they hit the cornea, they get bent, and they hit the lens, they get bent again, and then that image gets formed on the back of the retina. So your eye doesn't have to do too much when it's looking at things that are far away. Okay. Actually, when you're looking at things that are far away, these ciliary bodies or ciliary muscles are relaxed. Okay, and when they're relaxed, they flatten the lens here a little bit, and you're able to see things far away. Okay, because your lens does not actually have to be super round in order to focus on things that are far away. And basically, the rounder that things are, okay, if light's passing through them, the more that they bend the light. Okay, so your lens is flat when you look at things that are far away, because you don't need to bend the light that much more because it's already entering, in a parallel lines. The cornea bends it, doesn't need to get bent much more, and so in order for you to be able to see. Does that make sense? Kind of, yes, maybe. Okay. However, when you look at things that are really close, right, up close to your eye, the light rays are actually diverging. So they're actually, when they're coming up to your eye, they're traveling this way, going away from your eyeball. So those need to be bent. Those light rays need to be bent to focus that image on your retina, yes? So cornea does some of the work, but now, okay, the cornea does not bend it enough in order to be able to accommodate for the way that the light rays are moving, right? So the cornea bends it, but it needs to be bent a lot more in order to focus that image on your retina. Does that make sense? So your lens, in order to be able to focus that image, has to be much rounder to bend the light rays more to accommodate for the way that the light rays are moving. Does that make sense? Okay. So when you look at things that are up close, these ciliary muscles are actually contracted, which makes the lens rounder. All right. That's one of the reasons why, like, well, I read a lot as a child. So, like, my mom and dad would always tell me, like, I would get really, really involved in a book, and I'd be reading and reading and reading. They'd always tell me, like, look up, right? You have to sometimes, like, look up and focus on things that are far away and then go back. And the reason for that is, when you're doing this, when you're looking at something that's close, these muscles are contracted, right? And when you look at something far away, they get to relax and take a little bit of a break. All right, so it is good if you're reading to every once in a while look up and look around and then go back. Make sense? Okay. So this changing of the shape of the lens is called accommodation. Okay. So accommodation, lens changes shape. Flat for things that are far away, round for things that are up close. How many of you wear contacts or glasses? Okay. How many of you, without your glasses, you can see things that are up close but not far away? Let's see. How about, so the rest of you see things far away but not up close? Yes, thanks. Okay. So if you see things that are up close but not far away, you are what's called nearsighted, because you can see things that are near to you. It's called myopia. Okay. And basically, here's the deal. Your eyeball is too long. So normal eyeballs are round. Okay. And if you are nearsighted, your eyeball is too long. Okay. And that means that your lens cannot accommodate enough to be able to focus the image on the right spot. So here you go. So here's like a normal eyeball. Okay. Normal eyeball is round. Okay, and the light gets focused right there on the retina. No problem. Okay. Lens works. You know, everything works perfectly. 20/20 vision. If you are nearsighted, that's this one right here in the middle. So your eyeball is too long. Okay. Your lens and your cornea work as if your eyeball is normal, round. Right. And so when it focuses the image, it focuses it like right around there, which is not on your retina. Right. So when the light actually hits your retina, it's out of focus. Does that make sense? So you wear contacts, okay, that actually help to accommodate for that, and cause that image that gets focused on your retina to be actually focused. So it makes the image or light rays get focused farther back in your eye. Does that make sense? Okay. If you're farsighted, okay, your eyeball is too short. Okay, so it's kind of like this way. And so what happens is your eye again works, and your lens works to focus the image on where it should be, right? If your eyeball is normal, and so it actually focuses the image behind your eye, behind your retina. But when it actually hits your retina, okay, it again is not focused. Does that make sense? So the light rays haven't all come together. So you wear lenses that shorten that focusing of the light so that when it gets focused, it is actually on your retina. Yes? Make sense? That's cool, huh? Interesting. Okay, so here's your notes that you can copy down. You can also have what's called an astigmatism. Basically, you can have an astigmatism on your cornea, or you can have an astigmatism on your lens, and that's basically like they're the wrong shape. So normally your cornea would be perfectly symmetrical and all nice and perfectly curved in all directions. And astigmatism happens when that is not quite perfectly symmetrical. Okay? And that will either happen on your cornea or on your lens. Some people actually get, starting in like young adulthood, they get this thing where the cornea slowly kind of like changes shape and breaks down. And so if you are a donor, right, through the DMV, one of the things they ask you if you would like to donate is your eye. And one of the reasons why they do that is because they'll give corneal transplants to people. So they'll take like the front part of your eye and transplant it onto people. And it's highly successful. Rejection doesn't really ever happen, but it can, but it doesn't usually. So that's why they ask you if you want to donate to your eyes. That's one of the reasons. And how many of you have noticed, like, maybe you haven't, maybe your parents aren't at this age, but when like you go to a restaurant and your parents have to like hold things farther away to be able to see, right? They're like, can you read this for me? I can't read this, right? Or I don't have my glasses, right? The reason why they do that, okay, there's actually a valid reason for that. As you get older, your lens becomes less elastic. It doesn't have the ability to change shape as much as it did when you're young. And so as you get older, remember, in order to be able to see up close, your lens has to be really elastic and be round, right? If it can't get to that perfectly round shape that it needs to be in order to focus on things that are up close, you can't see things that are close. So that's why that people eventually start to need like reading glasses to be able to see things that are up close. Does that make sense? So your eyes age as you get old. You are able to correct all of these with LASIK or contact lenses, so which is good. Okay. So we kind of already talked about this, but this is constriction and convergence. So the last two steps of forming the image on the retina. So you constrict your pupil in red light in order to prevent those excess light rays from coming in. And you do that by constricting or contracting the pupil, iris, okay? Which makes the pupil smaller. And then convergence, okay, the eyes, like we were talking about, the eyes rotate inward, right, as you look at things that are closer. And that happens by the muscles that actually control the movement of your eyes, right? So you've got muscles like in the corners of your eyes that pull them in. Yeah, make sense?
Yeah.